It was once one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the country, influencing gun policy on Capitol Hill and in virtually every state coast to coast, talking about the NRA. But a number of internal scandals and lawsuits have weakened the organization, with some reports saying the NRA's membership is at a 10-year low. But its leadership would urge people not to count them out, as their passionate members look to November for their next big moment. In tonight's Prime Focus, Jay O'Brien meets with members of the group and sits down with the NRA's president, the first network television interview of the group's leader in nearly a decade, asking the question, is the NRA in an existential crisis?
The NRA. 3 letters almost every American knows, even if they've never held a gun, bought a bullet, or pulled a trigger. It's an organization older than the Air Force or the state of Colorado. But the National Rifle Association is now facing an existential threat unlike any other in its 150-year history.
A jury holding the National Rifle Association liable for financial mismanagement.
We're in Dallas.
You came all the way down here from Oklahoma?
Yes. At the NRA's annual convention to find out if the once politically dominant group, now emerging from a scandal, is still relevant this election year in a country with more guns than people.
There's an active shooter situation in South Florida.
Gripped by shooting after shooting in American theaters, churches, stores, and schools.
I got guns at home. I intend to keep them, and nobody's going to get them from me.
Guns are a big part of my life. You know, that's my hobby.
At this convention, the NRA elected new leadership, reformers, after the organization's enigmatic CEO, Wayne LaPierre, the architect of the NRA's pro-gun politics for decades.
We're your voice. That's what NRA is.
Resigned earlier this year in the heat of a scandal. In a case brought by New York's Attorney General, a jury found LaPierre and another executive liable for using NRA money for lavish personal expenses. LaPierre's legal team previously said it plans to appeal. The NRA has denied any institutional wrongdoing. In Dallas, as the dust settled from that case, the embattled organization picked Bob Barr, a longtime board member and former Georgia Republican congressman, who first rose to fame during the Clinton impeachment, to serve as the NRA's new president.
Thank you for doing this.
So we asked to sit down with Barr as he takes the reins of perhaps the most controversial advocacy group in the nation.
Okay. All right.
One that has blocked attempt after attempt for gun control legislation. It is the first network television interview the NRA has given in nearly 10 years.
One of your opponents, the organization Everytown, said because of the turmoil inside the NRA, quote, the gun lobby has never been weaker. Is the NRA weak?
No, the NRA isn't weak. You look at, I suppose our opponents, could take just one slice in time or one issue.
It's a pretty big slice.
Well, it depends.
Financial impropriety, civil judgment.
On how you look at it. If we're talking about successes and the impact and the relevancy of the NRA, you look at our victories. 29 states now, the highest ever, have constitutional carry. That's because of this organization. We are emerging, from the challenge posed by the state of New York Attorney General that tried to put us out of business. That was her goal.
The NRA isn't out of business, but it is reportedly struggling. Internal documents obtained by the publication The Reload, which covers Second Amendment issues, show membership dues were down $21 million last year compared to the year before.
Your political contributions are down. Your membership revenue is down. There were concerns about making payroll at some point.
Listen, every organization has its naysayers, but they're in a minority in whatever organization I've been involved in, and this one is no different.
When asked about reforms, Barr told us he's open to improving the organization, but says that doesn't mean the NRA will bend from its staunch opposition to any gun control policies.
In Uvalde, in Buffalo, the list goes on.
And
these shooters...
Uvalde was the most awful example I've ever seen of ineffective law enforcement.
But he bought the gun. That's true, but he bought the gun legally.
And
how do you stop that?
Are you ever going to be able to stop everybody from committing a crime with a gun? No. That's the same way.
But you can't cut it down?
Sure, we can cut it down. We can cut it down by better, more effective enforcement of existing laws.
In a study of hundreds of cases spanning more than 50 years, the Department of Justice found most mass shooters purchased at least some of their guns legally. And in most states, a buyer only needs to be 18 years old to purchase a rifle. They still must undergo a background check. 2 years ago, a group of congressional Democrats and Republicans passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the most significant gun legislation in decades, expanding background checks for gun buyers under 21, promoting red flag laws, and preventing domestic abusers from owning a firearm. But in the aftermath of shooting after shooting, the president has called for more, a renewal of the assault weapons ban, which expired in 2004.
It's time once again to do what I did when I was a senator. Ban assault weapons. They're weapons of war.
Barr told us he rejects the characterization that an AR-15 is a weapon of war.
The difference is one is fully automatic and one is not. I mean, that is a key difference that a lot of our critics just either don't understand or they know better and they just slough over it anyway.
You're making the distinction between automatic and semi-automatic.
Absolutely, there's a major difference.
But even still, have you seen what an AR-15 does to a body versus what a 9mm pistol does?
I've seen what a shotgun can do to a body.
An AR-15.
I've seen virtually any firearm can do tremendous damage to a human body.
That's going to be the new one we just launched about a week ago.
We wanted to ask NRA members about an argument the group repeatedly makes.
So just to press that button?
That with a Democrat in the White House, their Second Amendment rights are at risk.
Everything so far that Biden has done on the Second Amendment hasn't affected me. I have a license to carry in Texas.
And it hasn't affected you at all?
It hasn't affected me a bit, or my purchase of any firearm I want.
Within the 3 days the NRA held this convention, the website, the Gun Violence Archive, which tracks gun crimes nationwide, reports more than 150 Americans were killed with a firearm.
Where are you in terms of gun policy?
Star Lacroix and Jay Crawford wanted to talk to us about that.
So I do definitely believe, in our rights to bear arms. I do think there should be some safeties in place, like if there's some mental health issues.
It's getting higher and higher, the number of kids that are dying by gun violence, and that's unacceptable.
We wondered what Bob Barr thought.
Do you think the United States has a gun violence problem?
The United States has a violence problem. We have a problem
with violence problem.
We have a problem with crime in this country. And if we focus on the instrumentality, we're going to lose sight of the forest for the trees. We have a cultural problem in America that is many faceted. We could talk about any one of those for hours.
Does it involve guns?
We have a lot of crime that doesn't involve guns in this country.
But a lot of it does.
Well, and those people should be identified, investigated, prosecuted, and put in jail.
Barr told us the NRA has never advocated for unrestricted access to weapons, but believes it's not how you get a gun that needs to change, it's everything else.
There are many areas where the NRA would be willing to work with people from anywhere on the political spectrum, such as increasing the safety in our schools, increasing the training for those who might be in contact with groups of young people.
Is this going to be a fundamentally different NRA?
No, I mean, the fundamental mission of the NRA is the same today as it was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that is to teach responsible gun ownership, responsible gun usage, and to make programs available to both our members and the population generally that allow people to exercise their God-given and constitutionally guaranteed right to defend themselves.
That's a line the gun rights group has repeated for decades, regardless of who's been in charge. The question facing the NRA now, is anyone listening?
To be determined. Our thanks to Joe O'Brien for that.